Habari, hello, Sakpase, and welcome to Fontonfrom. I'm your host, Sarah Nyango. Today, I have two amazing guests who are going to be talking to us about an exciting new initiative by Black History Ottawa that gets visitors exploring the Black history of our nation's capital. So welcome to the show, Mr. Guerrier and Mr. Foyn. Jean-Marie Guerrier, please tell us a little bit about yourself and the role you play with Black History Ottawa, and maybe a little about Black History Ottawa as well.
Well, thank you for having us, Sarah. My name is Jean-Marie Guerrier. I'm the Vice President, Treasurer of Black History Ottawa. Black History Ottawa is a non-profit charitable organization that started in 1986. And since then, it has been organizing the opening ceremony for Black History Month, as well as promoting other events that happen during Black History Month. One of our objectives is also to not just do events during Black History Month, but to do other activities year-round. So about 15, 20 years ago, we started offering other types of activities year-round, such as the National Observance for Remembrance Day, Emancipation Day, and we've partnered with other organizations to offer events such as health seminars, as well as youth mentorships. We always make sure that whatever we offer in terms of activities, programming, that it has an educational aspect to it. And we'll find out a bit more about that when we talk about the new project that we're starting. At Black History Ottawa, the board, we function as a working board, so therefore all of our projects are led by one of our board members, supported by the other members. And at times when we get grants and funding, we would hire people as project assistants or consultants to help us with some of those programmings that we're offering. And actually, I think that's a good segue to...
That's where Sion Foyn comes in. So tell us a little bit about yourself and your involvement with Black History Ottawa.
Sion Foyn from Nova Scotia. Been living in Ottawa for a few years now. Came up here to do my graduate studies in history and find work and all that fun stuff. I've been volunteering with Black History Ottawa as long as I can remember, helping out with production and, sound and lights and stage management for different events, and always sort of, helping out with writing and doing little history things and fact-checking and all those fun little things. And when this project came up, Jean-Marie asked me if I wanted to kind of play the historian role.
And I mean, that's a role you come by honestly, because you are a historian from a historic
I am a
Black
lifelong
region.
student of history.
Okay.
That likes to tell the stories about the things that I learn and other people tell me, teach me.
So what kind of aspects of Canadian Black history are you interested in?
Just about anything I can get my eyes on, my hands on, my ears on. It has been, from the time I started my undergraduate, it has always been a subject area that I knew, because I was a history geek in junior high and elementary school. But it was a subject area that was never really there, even though growing up in Nova Scotia. My thesis subject was about the story leading to the creation of the No. 2 Construction Battalion, and a little bit of a study of some of the men who went over. So it kind of revolved around the advocacy
Mm-hmm.
and the sort of debate.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got a real deep passion for 18th century Black Canadian history. So
Yeah, interesting, interesting. And full disclosure, I am a board member of Black History Ottawa and also a long-time volunteer, so I have some sense of just how much work you put into this particular project. So, speaking of this project, Black History in Ottawa Streets. Tell us first about the title of this project and how it came about.
Actually, the project came about, the genesis of the project is our president, June Gervin, that had this idea where she wanted to do a project and talk about some of the people that were involved in the emancipation movement. And she lives in Sandy Hill, and she knows that in Sandy Hill there's a lot of those names that come
Street
up.
names.
Street names,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
And so she had you have Russell that's there. There's Osgood, and then with the history of Chloe Cooley, she started tying the connecting the dots a little bit, and then we looked at some of the landmarks as well that we see. So when she was telling me about this project, that she wrote something down years ago, but left. It was sitting on the shelf, and she brought it up. So then I started thinking about it. Well, that's a great idea, and how can we expand this? To not just make it about slavery, but talk a bit more about the Black Canadian experience. And that's when, again, I contacted Sian, we talked about the projects, and we started looking around in the city at different sites. And at the time, we weren't sure if it was going to be a walking tour or a bus tour, but when we saw the sites and the distance, that's when we decided that a bus tour would be the best way to do it. And then we looked at the theme, connecting, and also the route. We had to drive around a bit town to see what's the best way to do it. But yeah, that's how it started. It was an idea that our president, June Gervin, had. And then from there, we took it from just the history about emancipation, and we decided to make about the Black Canadian experience, or the Black history in Ottawa streets. That's how the name came about.
Wow, excellent, excellent. So can you give our viewers in a nutshell what this tour is?
In a nutshell,
like how many sites?
We've got 28 sites. I should say we stopped at 28 sites.
Why, you had more?
Oh yes, we had more, and we also had to look at how far we're traveling. We don't want to make the tour 4 hours. Right now, it's just under 2 hours.
Yeah.
And so yes, there's we stopped at 28 tours, and there's so much for people to discover. And even for us, when we were doing the research, just things that we found out that we were not aware of, without giving too much away, but people will find about how really Black Canadians contributed, not just to the city, but to Canada as a whole. So the role that they've played, for example, in immigration reform, in union activism. So they've led in a lot of those movements, and people, some of the feedback we've got is, wow, I didn't know about this information, or I walk by this place all this time.
Right.
I didn't realize
the connection to the Black experience. So, Sian, since you really are the one who did the heavy lifting with regard to research, how did you decide who and what to keep and who and what to leave out for this initial version of the tour?
For this initial, because as Jean-Marie said, we were really surprised by how much we started. So when we transitioned from the idea of just imagining some street names and telling the story as our dear Auntie June started us on, that's when the locations of different things, right? So and there's different buildings and monuments around the city of Ottawa, which are kind of a window into Black Canadian history, Black Ottawa history. And when we started riffing on that idea, that's when it really started, like, the number of places that we could have focused on and the number of stories that we could have told really took off. And so we kind of had to say to ourselves, look, how many hours do we want people on the bus for? And then that brought us kind of into the downtown core of Ottawa. So the market area, Sandy Hill, and
Lower Town.
Lower Town and downtown Ottawa. And a little bit out of the market area, heading towards the GG's place. And that's kind of how we started limiting it. And just imagining, we can't, as much as we would drive around for hours and hours, we want to start people off a little bit easy.
Yeah.
And so geographically, we found a way to limit it. Story-wise, narrative-wise, we didn't want to stay in a certain time period. We kind of wanted to, start as early existence of Black folk in this area as we could find. And we have stories that take us up to last week.
Okay.
Depending on what time you're watching this. So, stories which take us up to our present time, I should probably say.
And of course it helps that we are in the seat of federal power.
Yes.
And the Queen's representative happens to be based in our nation's capital.
Yes.
And many federal organizations also are based here.
Yeah.
So you started mentioning the areas of Black contribution that you focused on. You mentioned union, immigration. What other areas did you find there was a major contribution by persons of African descent to the evolution of Canada?
Military,
Yes.
science,
Yeah.
Yes.
medicine,
Sports.
politics, justice. It's pretty diverse.
Yeah.
It's
And the one thing that we did as well is we didn't do the tour, we didn't go chronologically, right? We just, otherwise would have been driving back and forth. So we tried to just, to connect the sites, and when there is something that's connected to an earlier landmark, earlier place that we visited, we make the connection. But yes, we really, we thought about doing it by time, it wouldn't have made sense at all.
So can you I know you don't want to give too much away, but can you give sort of some major figures or events?
Well, we found the first person
linked to this tour.
Like for example, when we found out about one of the first person to set up and settle in the Ottawa Gatineau, in the Hall Gatineau region, and somebody that's not mentioned at all in even some of the historical societies, and we were very excited about that. So we found a lot of that information. What else would you say without giving?
Or the ones that really stand out to you as the researcher?
For me, so can I say the name?
Yes, sure. Yes.
So for me, it was London Oxford, who was the first person, as far as we know right now, the first person of African descent to settle in the Gatineau, Ottawa area, settled just at the confluence of the Ottawa and the Gatineau River. And so the space that we go to talk about him is at Rockcliffe Outlook. When I first moved to Ottawa, I lived in Vanier, and I went to Rockcliffe Outlook all the time, thinking about the river, thinking about the barge that was built there to travel supplies to Montreal. never knew London Oxford's story at all.
Wow.
Didn't know anything. So I stand there sometimes, and there's even a plaque about the whole story.
Oh,
And he's not in that story.
He's not in the plaque.
There's no mention of him.
Interesting.
So I stand there all the time.
Right.
And Jean-Marie and I have a long-standing debate about whether we're going to get the people off the bus.
The bus or not.
And not. And you know, I love that space.
So
And
he won that debate.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what other events? Persons of note.
Two other ones which kind of surprised me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny how, you know, when you know things but you're still surprised by them, are more personal, like to me. So the PSAC building, because we talk about
Public Service.
the Public
Alliance
Service
of
Alliance of
Canada.
Canada building. So that's our story, an avenue into the story of Cal Best and his involvement in the creation of that union and civil rights and economic stability and all these fun things. And then, of course, Christchurch Cathedral for our dear John Dennison and all the wonderful things that happened down there.
Yeah. For me, I would say CalBest was one as well, that with the Public Service Alliance building, because we found out on how instrumental it was in funding the PSAC, and many people that benefit from all that union activism are not aware of that as well. And I did mention that before, the immigration reform. So you had people that came to the Union Station, and
Which is now the Senate of Canada,
the Senate of Canada.
temporarily.
Yes.
Yes.
And and they advocated for changes in racist immigration reform. And didn't just advocate for Black immigrants; they advocated for immigrants from all over the world. So I think a lot of people that come to the store will find out those type of information and realize that some of the things that we benefit from today was due to the advocacy of some of these
Black people.
Black people, yes.
Let's just say it.
Yeah.
Yes. So what are you hoping? You may have sort of answered this question, but what are you hoping people come away with once they've done the 2 hours and they're back at Ottawa City Hall and get off the bus?
Well, we've prepared a little passport here that
Ooh.
everyone that takes part of the tour
Okay.
get.
Yeah.
And in it, we've have the sites, and we've left a blank space. So as we're giving the information, we want people to actually write out what they think is important to them, what they've learned about those sites that we visited, and then at the end of the tour, we ask some of them to share with us what they found most interesting about the tour. And after every time we have the tour, it's a fascinating conversation, and people are amazed of again how much Black Canadians have contributed to the development of this country.
Sian, what did you get out of participating in putting together this
I'm
project?
still getting stuff out of it. For me, it's almost always the same thing as someone who's into history. It's always the wow factor. I've been doing history as long as I can remember, and I am always fascinated by one more story I didn't know about, one more thing I didn't know about, or you know, a connection like the train station, you know, where the Senate is. And for me, when I came to Ottawa, that was where the Constitution was negotiated. And I never thought of the sleeping car porters, and I never thought of the immigration reform.
1954 or 57?
Until we started working on this, right? So, you know, as soon as we said, okay, well, let's look at this building, we knew the trains came there, boom, that was the Porter story. But then there was things in there that started coming more out of it. The West Indian domestic scheme. I had no idea that that was so important to like some foundational communities in Ottawa. And you know, so again, it's the train station. It's the for me, it's the porters, because I'm from Nova Scotia. So we always think of the porters. I had an uncle who was a porter. Right. So it starts there, and then all of a sudden, it's all this other stuff. And then the other thing is, sorry if I just go is every time we've done the tour,
Yeah.
someone has been on the tour where they mention we start talking a story and they know
They're
more
connected to
because
it.
they're connected to it.
Wow.
And then they tell us something else.
Yeah.
And it's just like,
So do you record that when they give you these nuggets of
We
history?
take notes,
Okay.
yes, and
and their contact information?
yes,
So
so
Yeah.
and then we can follow up with them.
yes.
But like you're saying, the porters, it's also amazing to see how many of people that later occupied some high positions in within the government or started as porters, right? Because that was one of the
Stanley
only
Grizel.
position that they could do. Yes.
Judge Stanley Grizel.
Yeah.
The Honorable Dr. Jean Augustine was part of the domestic scheme.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's amazing the connection, and to think as well that the porters, when they advocated for reform, they're the one that pushed for that West Indian scheme,
sure.
domestic project as well. So
and there was a veteran, Pops Brown,
Yes.
who is also featured somewhere else in the tour.
yes,
Who it turns out was also an advocate who would welcome the young ladies who would come, and him and his wife would help settle them in their new
yeah.
in their new homes. So how do people go about participating on these tours?
So they could go on our website. So that's blackhistoryottawa.org, and there's the tab for the Black History in the Street store, and from there they could make the reservation from our website.
And do you accept groups, or is it just individuals, or how does that work?
Yes, we encourage people to come as a group. We find that when there's a group, they interact. The interaction is great. But people, there's price for individuals, for students, for seniors, as well as discount for groups. Yes. On the
And
website.
so far, it's just running for, like, the launch is the summer of 2024.
Exactly. So right now, the way we have it set up, it runs every Saturdays, and there's 2 tours that people can take Saturdays. One leaves at 11:30, and the next one leaves at 2:30. So every Saturday is 11:30 or 2:30.
And it's about 2 hours.
Yeah, it's just under 2 hours. With Ottawa traffic sometimes, but so far we've always been under 2 hours.
Yeah, because it is downtown.
Exactly.
Yes.
So there's a lot of construction going on
Yeah.
at this point, and What is the importance of an initiative like this to the promotion of Canadian Black history and just awareness raising generally, not just among Canadians, but visitors to Ottawa? Because, Ottawa is a huge tourist attraction.
You want to give a historical background about it and talk about more about that?
So, I don't think a lot of us learn much about our histories, our regions, our interactions with each other through the regular school system.
Yes.
And history is really about stories. For me, it's
Story.
it's people,
Yeah.
it's stories, it's things that people never really anticipated. Right? Sometimes you plan for something when you study things in history, you find out that 300 people thought they were going to go this way, and it ended up going this way, and something else entirely different comes. And I think for me, I think that's the fascinating part about it. Like I think it's important for as many of us to learn much more about the history of our country, because I think when we do that, we'll start to find out. I mean, there's a lot of really ugly stories that you find.
Oh, yeah.
But you also find so many gems of people just being people, and you find out, every year, you imagine yourself back in 1803. I mean, that was 1803 for those people, right? And 1804 comes, and there's something else. But you always find these stories of people trying to be in the same space. You know, like there's a lot of stories of people just trying to get along, and then other big things mess it up. And I think it's important, especially in a city like Ottawa, because, you know, I'm from Nova Scotia, so we have very clear lines of the different immigration patterns for Black folk in the Maritimes. One of the things about Ottawa is the community is so new.
And it's kind of transient.
And it's had a history of transient,
Yeah.
and then it's had this history of settlement, but the settlement pattern is so new, right? And, you know, for people to find a way to sort of coalesce around that simple
Yes.
reality, like,
Yeah.
you know, you have the Nigerian community, you have the Somali community, you have the West Indian community, you have
Yeah,
you
and
know,
who came at different times under
Maritimers
different
that came in, and
circumstances.
And if I could say for
Yeah.
us, Blackish Ottawa, we also thought wanted to take the focus only on Black History Month. We want people to learn about Black history throughout the
Black
year.
history every day.
Exactly. So every February we're bombarded by people that want
Yeah.
information. Well, we're providing you with information
All year.
all year now. So there's a way to learn more about the history and not only focus about only in February on learning about Black history.
That is the perfect spot to end the interview. Wonderful conversation. Thank you so much for all the work that you have done to bring this project to fruition. I myself have done the tours several times and will continue to keep going on it because it's so wonderful and amazing, and I learn so much. And all the best with the rest of the project.
Thank
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 you.
you.
We hope you enjoyed today's program. We love to hear from you, so please do write us and tell us what you thought, and tune in next time for another wonderful episode of Fontonfrom right here on Rogers TV. Kwaheri, and bye for now.